Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that's super common in the tech world, but also notoriously difficult. We're talking about those huge IT projects that rely on a whole bunch of different vendors. It's a high-stakes game for sure, so let's get into how you can actually win it.
So does this picture look familiar? You're trying to build one solid IT solution, but you're stuck coordinating a handful of different companies. Each one has its own team, its own tech, and, its own agenda. It feels less like you're conducting an orchestra and a whole lot more like you're wrangling cats.
And that really is the heart of the issue, isn't it? On one hand, bringing in multiple vendors means you get the absolute best-in-class experts for every single piece of your project. It's a shortcut to real innovation. But on the other hand, well, it can spiral into total chaos if you don't manage it just right.
I mean, the appeal is so obvious. You get the A-team for databases from one company, the top security gurus from another, and the wizards who build that beautiful user interface from a third. But in the process of trying to build this dream team, you can accidentally walk yourself right into a nightmare of complexity. And you can see, this isn't some niche problem anymore. It's pretty much standard practice for any company trying to do big things. So the question isn't really if you'll have to run a multi-vendor project. It's how you're going to do it without the whole thing blowing up. Okay, so what does this minefield actually look like on the ground? Well, you can pretty much boil down all the things that can go wrong into 3 core hurdles. Let's break them down one by one.
Hurdle number 1 is the most obvious one: the tech itself. You've hired all these specialists for their amazing, unique technology, but now you've got to make all that tech from different worlds actually talk to each other and work like a single, seamless system.
And these aren't just separate problems. They're like a row of dominoes. You're never going to get that seamless interoperability if the data formats don't match up. And none of that even matters if the basic software and APIs just aren't compatible from the start. It really proves that the most critical work happens way up front in the planning stage, long before anyone writes a single line of code.
All right, so let's say you get past the tech hurdles. Now you run smack into the people problem. This isn't about code anymore. It's all about coordination. Without a master plan for how everyone talks to each other, you don't really have a team. You just have a bunch of separate groups working in their own little silos.
Just think about it for a second. Vendor A loves their fast, agile sprints, but vendor B is completely rigid, using a waterfall model. Then you've got vendor C, whose key deadline is a week before vendor A can even give them the part they need. See, without one single unified process and clear channels to communicate, info gets lost, schedules slip, and the finger-pointing begins.
And beyond the tech, beyond the schedules, lies the last and maybe the trickiest hurdle of all: motivation. What does each vendor actually want out of this project? Because it's a really dangerous assumption to think that their goals are exactly the same as yours.
Look, here's the fundamental disconnect. A vendor naturally is focused on their contract. They want to deliver exactly what's in the scope on time to protect their bottom line. But you, as the client, you're focused on the big picture business success, which, let's be honest, often requires flexibility that goes way beyond that rigid contract. When those two different mindsets collide, conflict is pretty much guaranteed.
So, how do we fix this? We know we can't just wish these challenges away, but we can absolutely manage them. And the solution starts with building a strong, clear governance framework. Think of this as the official rulebook for the entire project, designed to bring some serious order to all that potential chaos.
Now, this isn't about creating a bunch of red tape. It's about creating clarity. It all starts by defining roles, so there's absolutely no confusion about who owns what. From there, you get clear on how decisions are made and how you're going to handle changes. And finally, you track and monitor everything, not to micromanage, but to make sure those first 3 steps are actually working. It's a complete, closed-loop system. That change management piece is so important. And one of your key tools here is the Change Control Board. Just think of it as the official gatekeeper for the project. This isn't some informal chat. It's a formal group with the real authority to say yes or no to changes. This is what stops that dreaded scope creep and makes sure everyone understands the full impact of a change on the budget, the timeline, and all the other vendors.
And for that last step, monitoring, you need cold, hard data. That's where key performance indicators, or KPIs, come in. You can't just walk around asking, "So, how's it going?" You need objective numbers.
Are we hitting our completion rates? And you know what? You can even measure the soft stuff, like communication. A simple survey can give you a hard score that tells you if your teams are actually collaborating or just coexisting.
Okay, so a governance framework is absolutely essential, but processes by themselves are not enough. You also have to manage the human side of the equation. The real goal here is to shift everyone's mindset, yours and theirs. You have to stop thinking of them as just vendors and start building a team of true partners.
And this partnership building, it starts way before the project even kicks off. During the selection phase, you're not just looking at their tech, you're looking at their history of collaboration. Then, in negotiation, you're setting crystal clear expectations. And once the project is underway, you can build on that solid foundation to create a genuinely collaborative environment.
A critical tool in that negotiation phase is the Service Level Agreement, or SLA. This is where you get really specific. It's not enough to just say the system should be reliable. An SLA contractually defines reliability. It says the system will have 99.9% uptime and any critical issue will get a response within 15 minutes. It basically replaces vague hopes with a concrete, legally binding promise.
And here are the actual practical things you can do to make that collaboration a reality. It's all about creating shared spaces, things like regular joint meetings or a shared Slack channel where everyone can talk. And pay close attention to that point about aligning incentives. If you can tie a vendor's bonus to the success of the entire project, not just their little piece of it, you start to magically break down those conflicting goals we talked about earlier.
So after all of this work, the governance, the relationship building, the constant monitoring, what's the actual payoff? Well, when you get this right, the multi-vendor approach completely transforms from a risky liability into your organization's single biggest strategic advantage.
And that advantage, it goes way beyond just finishing a project on time and on budget. It's about building a fundamentally better business. You get more efficient, you make smarter, data-driven decisions, you deliver a much better experience for your customers. And all of that together, it creates a real lasting competitive edge in your market.
So if you only remember 3 things from this explainer, let it be these. 1. Proactively work to turn your vendors into real partners. 2. Build that strong governance framework. It is your single most important tool, period. And 3. Never stop measuring. Success isn't a one-time thing. It's a moving target you have to keep aiming for.
And that leaves us with one final question for you to think about. As you start planning your next big project, take a really hard look at how it's being set up. Is it actually built for collaboration, or is it accidentally designed for conflict? Because just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best, well, that's not a strategy.